grandfather's chair in Granny and Grandma's house. This high-backed, beaten-up, hand-me-down from God knows where armchair. And when he was alive, I would definitely not sit down on it. My place was by his side here. Granny never seemed to have any time to come and sit with us. She always had so much to do. Washing, cooking, cleaning, ironing, polishing, putting away. So it was really just me and Granda sitting down by the side of the fire, staring into the flames. And I was sometimes, not all of the time, I would wish that I could hear something about my Granda's life. Something, anything other than this silence that wrapped its fingers about us. As far as I know, he was a good man, and now that he was very good to me, I was always asking, but he'd never tell. Here were the things he'd seen if he'd been through hell. He was always just grand and me, with his flat cap and suit by the silvery sea. He'd plodge in the water right up to his knees. He'd go far enough but never too far, just like his stories about the war. Said he'd save them for another day. As far as I know, he was a good man, and now that he was very good to me, I was always asking, but he'd never say about the friends he'd made and lost along the way. It was always just grand and me, and now that he sailed when he was just a boy, but those silent thoughts brought him no joy. He showed me things to help my life, with ropes and strings, how to use a knife. He said he'd tell me another day, and never a tear at the corner of his eye. He could drown in his times gone by. Truly now he was a good man. He was always very good to me. I never stopped asking, and he never said about the things he'd seen and the life he'd led. He was always just grander to me.
My granda was born in Jarrah, James Robert Henderson, on the 14th of March 1889, and he died on the 18th of August 1972, and there it is. They are the bold facts. But what do they hide? What do we know about them? What do they really tell us? Apart from a very few photographs, some family stories and some half-remembered, half-forgotten incidents, what's left? Just a few weeks after his birth, on the 31st of March 1889, the Eiffel Tower was unveiled as part of the Paris exhibition. The tower at the time was the tallest man-made freestanding structure in the world, and it still is seen as a masterpiece of 19th century architecture. There were no fanfares for the birth of my granda. Oh no, his birth would have been met with a great sense of foreboding. His mother, Margaret, was a single mother. He was illegitimate. The mark of Cain was on his forehead. His father was a pitman, and he died in a mining accident at Hebburn Colliery just a few months before his birth. You see, my granda was born at a time when the stigma of being born illegitimate was hard to overcome. His mother would have received no help whatsoever from her own family. Well, in another time, in another place, he could have been anything that he wanted to be. He could have been another Leonardo da Vinci, any number of kings or popes. But at this time and in this place, well, his mother had to work to live, and she couldn't keep her son and work at the same time, and so she was forced to give him up aged 10 to Green's Boys' Home, which was found on the corner of Military Road and Mile End Road in South Shields. This was not a school where he would be called a child or a pupil. No, he was registered as an inmate. It was also used as the kind of school that parents would threaten their children with. If you're not good, if you don't behave, then we'll send you to Green's. And I've got a copy of a letter which has him down as on warrant, which means he was under arrest for non-compliance. Non-compliance is defined as a failure to act in accordance with a wish or a command. Perhaps he answered them back, or he just got tired of them telling him every day that he didn't have a father. Well, this charge made sure that aged 12 that he was placed on board of the industrial maritime ship the Wellesley, which was moored off Little Street in North Shields. And there were 300 boys, my granddad included, on board of this old wooden man of war, and he was allowed to have a visitor after he'd been 2 months on board of the ship without any contact with his family. One visitor once a month, and, well, the visitors didn't have to be drunk. Now, I've got a photograph, a rare photograph, a photograph taken over 120 years ago of an unsmiling mother and her child. The thing about it is, photographs were very expensive and took a long time, so the sitters really did have to sit straight-faced. No smiles for the camera, and no wonder. Now, I don't know whether it's a coincidence or the state of something that was yet to come, but my grandfather, the boy who was in that photograph, was dressed in a sailor suit, and considering the life that he had upon the sea, I suppose it was a tale of things to come. No smiles for the camera, and no wonder. Listen. His mother, my great-grandmother, gave him up for a life on board of the Wellesley. And life on board of the Wellesley was harsh. The discipline was swift, and the punishments were unchecked and brutal. The boys were expected at 4:30 in the summer and 5 o'clock in the winter to be up, washed, dressed and breakfasted, and then scrubbing the decks, sometimes even before daylight. And then they would continue on learning their skills until dusk every single day. My grandad endured life on the Wellesley for 3 years, and when he was 15 in 1904, he was signed on board of a full-rigged sailing ship bound for the Black Sea from the Tyne. Incidentally, the Wellesley was burnt down on the 11th of March 1914, and I cannot say for certain, but I can place my hand on my heart and say that my grandad did not shed one single tear at its demise. However, the Wellesley did give him a number of skills that he used all of his life. His dexterity with rope and string was always a wonder to behold, and his prowess at stitching and knitting and darning always amazed me. He was a good swimmer, and it is said that he saved the life of a man from drowning on the Tyne, and for this he was given a life-saving medal. And I would love to say that this medal is still in our family, this one remaining happy memory of his time on the Wellesley. But it was pawned in the 1920s and 30s when money was in short supply. I bob like a fish and I float like a cork. Swimming's better than working or toiling. Rivers, oceans, lakes or sea hold no fear for me. Just throw me down to the depths of the deepest ocean. I'll pull at the tail of Neptune's daughter, and the tide will turn for me. And the tide will turn for me. And the tide will turn for me. Beneath the waves I'm my own man. No one tells me what to do, sir. Free to hear the winners' cheers. Another race is won. It's not what you win, but the things that you can learn. I'll leave this prison ship behind. Someday me tide will turn. Someday me tide will turn. Now the tale gets told, I'm a hero bold. Saved a soul who swam like a boulder. Me prize was a medal, a clap on the back, double rations for me. No fame, no praise, no rest, and no more glory. Down on me knees, scrubbing at dawn. Someday me tide will turn. Someday me tide will turn. I bob like a fish and float like a cork. Swimming's better than working or toiling. Rivers, ocean, lakes or sea hold no fear for me. Go throw me down to the depths of the deepest ocean. I'll tug at the tail of Neptune's daughter, and the tide will turn for me. And the tide will turn for me. Now, he must have returned from all of his journeys around sailing with a lifetime of stories that he could have told me, but he never mentioned them. I would have loved to have heard those stories, but he was a man now, and he decided that he would work on the shipyards of the Tyne. He was going to use all of the skills that he'd learned on board of the Wellesley and become a rigger. A rigger is the man who uses pulleys and ropes and shifts and lifts all of the men and materials in the shipyard. It was like this. Work was hard to come by. If you didn't have money, then you couldn't buy food. If you couldn't buy food, then you starved. For a full day's work in 1910, a rigger would earn 8 old pennies for a day's hard manual work. And my granda, he didn't tell me many stories, but one of the stories that he would tell me would be of the scramble and the chaos at the shipyard gates when the men, desperate for work, would stand and shout and scream for the foreman to choose them for a day or two's work, or maybe a good start in the shipyards. But if you would pay the foreman a bribe, then he might give you a start. Nothing was for certain. This bribe, in the form of a penny or twopence or even a threepenny bit, nearly half a day's wages, would be placed inside of a matchbox and slid along the bar, usually in Jarrow's long bar, towards the foreman. And it meant that he might, nothing was for certain, he might choose you the very next day. But my granda never did this, because he wanted to be chosen for being known as a bloody hard grafter. And he was. It was during this time that my granda met Margaret Comiskey. Her father, Thomas Comiskey, was from Clonbur in Galway, and he had travelled all of the way from Ireland to get a job at one of the most prestigious yards on the Tyne, Palmer's Yard. He had married a Jarrow lass, Bridget Lydon, and when my grandma brought my grandad to meet the redoubtable Thomas Comiskey, and when he found out that he was not a Catholic, he told his daughter in no uncertain terms, "Never bring that man into this house again." But reason prevailed, and the two of them were married on the 21st of March 1914 at St Bede's Church, Monkton Road in Jarrow. And I've got to tell you that I and all of the priests never saw my granda come to Mass once. With the First World War looming, my granda joined the East Yorks Regiment and became Private Robert James Henderson, serial number 16985. In an article in the Shields Gazette in February of 1964, my grandfather said, "I was there at the beginning of the war, and I was there at the end of the war." These numbers were etched on the side of his three medals, and these three medals were given to all of those soldiers who survived the First World War. And with that kind of serviceman's humour, they were named Pip, Squeak and Wilfred. Pip, Squeak and Wilfred were three extremely popular cartoon characters that were printed every day in the Daily Mirror. It's not for being brave or the things that I did. I feel I want a coconut for not being dead. And all I've got to show for a bloody long war is Pip, Squeak and Wilfred. Pip, Squeak and Wilfred. Pip took me far across the sea, made a soldier boy of me. No one cared where I came from, while we sang our soldiers' songs. Saw things no man should have seen. Now they darken my dreams. Squeak dropped me at the gates of hell, gave me tales I cannot tell, for king and country and for home, pinned down beneath a stranger's sun. Those brothers that I've left behind will live on inside my mind. It's not for being brave or the things that I did. I feel I want a coconut for not being dead. All I've got to show for a bloody long war is Pip, Squeak and Wilfred. Pip, Squeak and Wilfred. Wilfred wrote the truth for home.
no sweet victory, no kingdom come, no hero to land, just broken man, darkness trapped inside of them, no way I ever could explain. I'll live forever with this pain. So how the hell am I still here? Through dark, the cold, the stench, the fear. So why was I the chosen one to get the chance return to home? With these medals I never can forget, to the fallen goes the dead. It's not for being brave or the things that I did. I feel I won a coconut for not being dead. And all I've got to show for a bloody long war is Pip, Squeak and Wilfred. Pip, Squeak and Wilfred.
War was declared on August 4th, 1914, and Private Henderson, serial number 16985, saw action in Italy, France and Salonika. Among his medals is the 1914-15 Star, which was awarded to those soldiers who signed up in 1914 and served until the 31st of December 1915. My granda fought in Gallipoli from April to December of 1915, and the conditions that the soldiers met there were horrendous. Bad planning. They were pinned down on the shore while the enemy had the upper ground. Bad supplies and bad sanitation. My granda, along with thousands of others, contracted dysentery. And of the stories that he could have told me, he told me on far too many occasions that I didn't really want to hear. And he would say, I was transported back, all the way back to France, and I had me arse hanging out of the truck with me trousers round me ankles. It was an image that I found difficult, I still find difficult, to take out of my head to this day. He also got frostbite, and at the end of the war, before returning home, he was taken to Stoke Mandeville Hospital in Buckinghamshire and treated there for several months.
I used to work on a sailing ship across the raging sea. By the time that I got back, I was just in time for Gallipoli. I've seen the hardest years, the kind you and your father missed. So I've come to ask you this. Why don't you live your life? You'll find your life goes faster than you know. If I could choose a time to live, then here's the place I'd go. But I'm just history, a dying tree that's trying to make you see. Well, you've got to make more of your life, or soon you'll be like me. And now that I'm losing my memory, some things take me back, like looking out on a wintry sea or a road that's lost its track. And when I look back on this life I've led, hardtail it seems, better life than living on dreams. Why don't you live your life? You'll find your life goes faster than you know. If I could choose a time to live, then here's a place I'd go. But I'm just history, a dying tree that's trying to make you see. You've got to make more of your life, or soon you'll be like me. I wish I could offer these words to you that you just ignore. No one listens to old man anymore. Why don't you live your life? You'll find your life goes faster than you know. If I could choose a time to live, then here's a place I'd go. But I'm just history, a dying tree that's trying to make you see. You've got to make more of your life, or soon you'll be like me. Oh, well, you've got to make more of your life, or soon you'll be like me.
When he returned, he took up to working at the shipyards again, and it was there that he got his nickname of TOT. His fellow workers saw him as a strong man, as a tough man, but he was a short man, and so they thought he was as short as a toddler or a tot. But he always preferred his own name, which you would say slowly and with pride. James Robert Henderson. He continued to work in the shipyards through the 1950s and 60s, and in 1937 his mother, who was known as Polly, died, and she incidentally worked alongside Granny Henderson at Haggis Ropery in Willington Quay. With the Second World War looming, his sons were called up and sent to fight in South Africa and in Borneo. And we don't know what he felt about this, his sons going off to fight in a war, but I'm sure that he was proud of them all. He continued his work until he retired, and then in the 1960s, he took a part-time job to help build the Viking shopping centre, the Viking precinct. And later, he got a part-time job in a bakery that was on the Simonside Industrial Estate. His wife, my grandmother, died at home in 1969, and my grandfather followed not long after in 1972. But we know that before he passed, he got to hear about my sister Maureen's son being born, Stephen. And I'm sure that he was pleased that his quiet legacy was continuing. Granda was 83. So there it is. The bare, bald facts. Do we know him any better? I can still hear his voice, slow and resonant. But I still want to know more about him. But now, it's too late.
Even if I could tell him, it would never be right. Fought for my birth, fought for my life. I fought all of my life, pitched into a story I never asked to live. Knew the fist, not friendship, no warmth, no comfort. I had so much to give, given a number, never called by my name. Broken rules and boundaries, hard work and blame, heartache and shame. No chance, no choices, my life was given away. Now nobody knows me, I'm always running after who I could be. And the small moments stay, they never go away. It's hard not to break the rules in this game for lonely fools. Out of time with my feelings, never taught to be kind. It's hard to see in my life which part of it was mine. No one to talk to, no one to hear, locked in my silence, alone with my fears. Year after year, take nothing for granted, became my own man, with no one to guide me. I made my own way. I did the best that I can. I did the best that I can. Out of time with my feelings, never taught to be